Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to proceed. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If any pecuniary interest, please declare so at the appropriate time. Do we need to do a roll call, sir? Thank you. Long-term care division, we're going to do 3A and 3B separate, please. So the correspondence to receive and file 3A. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hand, Councillor Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 3B. Two information reports. We'll do them together, BA and BB. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor McRoberts, Councillor Cook. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Any other business arising? Seeing none, move into corporate services. Again, correspondence to receive and file. It is all 1-4A. Mover and a seconder, bring this to the floor, please. Councillor McRoberts, Councillor Hands. Discussion? I have a little bit of discussion on that. They're not offering any options on that, is what I'm seeing there. Anyway, Councillor Hands.
Sorry, this issue came up a few months ago, and I believe my municipality sent a letter to AMO suggesting or looking for assistance in the issue. And what we were considering and hoping that somehow we could have some kind of a cooperative. These double-digit increases like that my municipality has had over the last 4 and 5 years is really impactful on a small budget. And the idea is, why can't we come together in some way? Many of us have the same insurance company. Sarnia does not, but many of us smaller municipalities belong to the same company. If somehow we could have a cooperative that we could better use our money and try and control these increases that we have no control over. So I was hoping that that would be something that AMO could look at and advise. Like for example, Blue Water Health, the hospital, they're in a cooperative for their purchasing power, with 4 other, I think it's a total of 4 or 5 hospitals. We should be doing that in municipalities on our insurance because we just, I know our last percentage was about, I think it was 12% for the village, and at least 3 or 4 years in consistently double-digit increases. So we need to find some fix for this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we'll all agree with you. With this particular resolution here, there's no action in there, which is a poor resolution, is my pointing out. All in favor to receive and file? Carried, thank you. So in other business, I'm going to have Mr. Tifo discuss this for a moment.
Yes, thank you, Ferguson. Further to Councillor Hand's comments, I can advise that locally we are addressing the issue, and we figure that the best way to do that is to take it in incremental steps. And one of the first steps is to invite the 3 major players in the industry that provide municipal general liability coverage, and for us, housing corporation coverage, locally to come and talk to us, to all your clerks and treasurers. And so Intact, Aon, and Marsh are the 3 players, and they'll be in front of us September 12th or 14th. I keep mistaking those dates, but September 14th they'll be here. And then from there, we will be talking to all of your folks as well in terms of what the best path forward. And if it makes sense to get into sort of a cooperative sort of bidding environment, then, and that's for somebody else to tell us whether it does, because sometimes if you go down a certain path, it can actually hurt you from a premium perspective. But nonetheless, all options are effectively on the table. So we are taking incremental steps towards addressing these issues. And the next meeting on this is on September 14th, with all 3 players being called to meet with us and provide us with a general outlook on the market, knowing that the other 2 competitors are also in the room speaking to us.
Good, thank you. Any follow-up questions? I'm going to, Councillor Atkinson first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this meeting just for yourselves, or are you inviting our municipal staff as well, or is that coming later?
No, thank you, Councillor Atkinson. In fact, it's for all of our municipal partners in Lambton County, so all municipalities are invited to that meeting, and that was arranged, in fact, with all of your staff members, I'd say about 2 months ago, so they all know that we're calling the 3 players, and they're all going to be in attendance.
Councillor Hams?
Sorry, I just wanted to make one more comment. I appreciate that. That's positive news. It looks like, potentially something's being looked at. Because when I was reading the letter and they're talking about, let's go to AMO, I think back to many years ago when I got into municipal politics and I went to the AMO conference, and at that time all they're talking about is joint and several liability and what are we going to do about it. And then the next year I go in the same discussion, and all these years later, which is, 15 or 20 years later, they're still talking about what are we going to do about joint and several liability. So I didn't have a lot of hope that there'd be resolution, but this sounds positive. So thank you.
Thank you, and again, good comments, Councillor Hand. The issue of joint and several liability was certainly something that the county made representations to the province. You'll recall that the province was looking into this before COVID, and of course COVID hit and a lot of things were sort of set aside for that period. I'm not sure where it is, but we certainly made representations to the province on that issue because we understand that the legal concept of joint and several liability certainly puts a lot of financial pressures on municipalities. So if any one of your team members, any one of your CAOs, your treasurers, your clerks want to see what we sent in, we're happy to share that and just have them write to us and we'll share our advocacy piece.
Good, thank you. We're going to move into Finance, Facilities, and Court Service Division. There's 2 parts, 5A and 5B. We'll do 5A first as an information report. Mover and second brings to the floor, please, to receive and file. Councillor Dennis, Councillor Cook, discussion. All in favor? Or sorry, Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Are we feeling that we're on target with the money and everything, that we're moving in the right direction at this quarter, at this time of the fiscal year?
And I'll turn it over to our treasurer, please.
Through you, the chair, to Councillor Atkinson. Basically, as of the second quarter, we've been seeing some positive results as far as interest rate revenue and our investment returns through our reserve fund. So that's the good news story of the budget. However, we've been seeing some some challenges in our court services sector where we're not achieving the revenues that we had originally anticipated to be receiving as a result of some service level modifications there as a result of the justice JP shortages. So at this point in time, we're projecting a balanced year-end position. There's always in a budget some good news and some bad news. With interest rate increases, you get some favorable returns on your investments. In the other areas such as infrastructure and development services, we had some emergency repairs that weren't anticipated, so there were some cost overages there. But overall, we're projecting a balanced year-end position at this point in time.
Any other discussion? Thank you. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 5B, and this is for a motion. Move in a second, bring it to the floor, please, and then I'll read the motion out. Councillor McRoberts, Councillor Hands. The recommendation is that the province of Ontario be petitioned to immediately address the chronic lack of justice of the peace, particularly in southwestern Ontario closures. Should this include for this to go to all municipalities also?
Good question, but what we understand, and I stand to be corrected, is that the Southwest region is more impacted than others, and that's the reason why you've probably seen that recommendation wasn't made.
Good, thank you. That's just a question I had. Any other discussion on this? Councillor Cook.
So thank you. Just wondering, so what is the qualifications for a JP? We hear about all these new people coming into the province, you think out of the 800,000 supposedly that came in the last year, according to the Premier, they'd have some JPs maybe coming out of those numbers?
Mr. Defoe?
Yes, thank you. So the qualifications for the JPs are set out by provincial regulation, and unlike, let's call it a judge, you don't need to be a member of the Law Society or 10 years experience as an active lawyer, but effectively you have to be a member in very good standing in your community, meaning that you've been very engaged in your community for a number of years and have a very good reputation. You apply. I think the issue at this point in time in terms of appointments is catching up to the number of retirements that have occurred over the last number of years, particularly with COVID pressures. And as a result of that, there has been a backlog for appointments. Now, there's also what we would call sort of a system that is fairly rigid. They call once a year and they appoint once a year, if I understand it correctly. And then once you're appointed, it probably takes at least another 18 months to 2 years for the individual to be able to sit independently on the benches. So effectively, the short answer to that is a good community citizen to apply as a JP, you go through the application process, through the interview process. If you're selected, then it takes 18 months to 2 years before you can actually sit independently.
So just to follow up to that, I guess age happens every year, so you think they should have had this figured out 5 years ago, that people are going to retire. So like everything else, I mean, we do succession planning here at the county, we do it at our own municipality, we do it at every company you work in. So I'm surprised the government didn't think about this 5 years ago to make this work. But anyway.
It's a good comment, but unfortunately you've got the COVID piece that who knows what kind of curveballs were thrown, and it's not just the province who's facing a backlog in terms of its judicial appointments. We know that the federal government has a bunch of openings that haven't been fulfilled as well.
Good, thank you. Councillor McRoberts?
So is it safe to say, going back to the last conversation, that we're going to come up short in what we anticipated in fines coming in?
Well, if the offices are not open because of lack of resources, it's hard to get a conviction and bottom line revenue as a result of the incident that that has occurred. So we're giving you early warning is if this isn't rectified in the short term, we may have challenging revenues for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Warden Merrick, please.
Thank you, Chairman Ferguson. I guess I just wanted to add to that it's not just the JPs. From what I hear, the fines themselves are way down as well. Mr. Tifo, maybe you would like to confirm that?
Yes, and taking a look at sort of, let's call it root cause analysis of, per your question, Councillor McRoberts, the revenue for the POA. Of course, when you don't have JPs, you have limited court dates. Limited court dates means less matters are being processed, means less matters being processed, means less convictions and whatnot, means less payments. But in addition to that, we know that from an enforcement perspective, total charges per year has gone down dramatically over the last 10 years. And then, of course, let's call it the more significant, larger six-figure fines have been fairly inexistent in the last little while. So principally, we've got a JP issue, but at the same time, in terms of getting the full context, full story, there are sort of enforcement numbers of tickets out there that are being issued or not issued. And then secondly, the quantum of the fines are significantly lower than the court had experienced in the past. That may change. It's just the nature, human nature. Whatever behaviors are out there will be enforced. But essentially, that's the full context.
Good, thank you. Did we ask the question there?
You got it on the floor.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. Any other business? I think we probably did cover the other business. Thank you. Move on to the Social Service Division. 6A and will be done as one. So 6A is two parts, 6AA and 6AB. So mover and a seconder bring us to the floor, please, to receive and file. Councillor McRoberts, Councillor Miller. Discussion, please. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Now 6B will be three parts. I'm going to do each one separately at a time because they are looking for motions for each one separately. The 6A, the Affordable Housing Initiative Report. Bring it to the floor, then I will read out the recommendation for that one. Councillor Cook and Councillor Atkinson. The recommendation is the council approve the following. Hiring of one full-time temporary affordable housing development project coordinator and the creation of an affordable housing seed funding program. So this is on the floor. Councillor McRoberts, questions, please, discussion.
It's asking for a recommendation from the council to approve that position, but was that position not posted available a couple of days ago? Prior to?
We'll ask.
Sure. Through you, Chair Ferguson, to Councillor McRoberts. The position was posted in anticipation of this meeting. If the council doesn't approve this, we'll be pulling that posting. We won't be doing interviews until after the council meeting in September. So we would pull that if not approved. But given the number of initiatives that we need to get working on, we thought it was prudent to get it posted.
Councillor McRoberts again.
Was there any entity or person that was kind of handling prior to this position being created?
And through to Councillor McRoberts, not really. To answer your question, many of those questions about development would come to myself. They would come to our manager of housing services, or they may come through the CAO's office. So really, we were trying to manage those. But again, given the urgency of the housing crisis and the number of projects that we want to work on, we really need to have a dedicated resource for this.
Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a further question on that. The position, and I probably missed reading it, but this is a temporary position. There'll be no benefits or anything like that. It'd be like a contract position. And to what term are you looking for that person for? 1 year, 2 years, 3?
Councillor Atkinson, yes, it will be a temporary contract position. We believe that we'll need the position for approximately 18 months. We're looking at getting a number of projects to be shovel ready. From that point, they would be taken over by both the housing services and procurement through our regular processes. So we anticipate 18 months we have put 18 months to 24, just depending on when we get started, but that is what we're anticipating.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Move into B sub B, the Homeless Community Outreach Services. Mover and second bring us to the floor, and then I will again read that one. Councillor McRoberts, Councillor Cook. The recommendation is that given the positive outcomes achieved by the temporary outreach community workers, council approves making these two positions full-time permanent within the Homelessness Prevention and Children's Services Department. Discussion, please. Councillor Cook.
Thank you. So I guess just the question, so if we are moving some of these individuals from the street to a shelter, are we taking it away from somebody else, or where is the shelter that these folks are going to when they're coming from the streets?
Through you, Chair Ferguson, to Councillor Cook. It really depends. We do have a number of individuals on the street, and we try to work with them to move them into the shelter. But at the same time, we're working with the individuals in the shelter to find them permanent housing. So it's moving them along the continuum so that individuals really shouldn't stay in the shelter system more than 10 days. That's our goal. Right now, they are staying longer because, we're struggling to find affordable housing. But we have a number of staff who work specifically with individuals to move them to either transitional housing, into other apartments, affordable housing, that type of thing, to assist them to find employment so they can retain their housing. So it's always moving along the continuum.
Councillor McRoberts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's 200,000 that we're looking at to make them both full-time. And they're at the outreach program. Are we going to adjust hours and times as we've discussed before? Because not everybody checks in looking for housing between 8:30 and 4:30. We're also doing more work than that with the outreach. Did we have enough data at the outreach program to justify these two being full-time positions and $200,000 being spent on that specific entity within the parameters that are there now?
And through you, Chair, to Councillor McRoberts, I believe we do have enough data. We're seeing great success with this team. The team is being, I mean, they're there now, right? They've been in a pilot program and they're doing that work, and the dollars have already been allocated to them on a temporary basis. So we'd be making that permanent. We're not making any change in our envelope. But I do believe we have enough data. We receive calls on a daily basis from different municipalities, from downtown merchants, as you've indicated before, and from the general public. And our outreach team goes out, I mean, every day for these calls, as well as to do the touch points and all the other individuals that are homeless. And if you look in our report, we talk about they've assisted with over 111 individuals moving into permanent housing, and specifically 40 of those individuals were moved directly from the street, from living rough, into housing. So I think that that is successful. The numbers may appear to be strong, or to be low, but I think they're actually very strong. I mean, we shouldn't have anyone really living on the street. So we feel it's important to make those roles permanent. Every year when we do our budget, we review all of our positions and things like that. But this is a huge need, and we feel it's important to make those positions permanent and continue that work.
Councillor McRoberts.
Follow up. So are the hours going to change? That's something that we hear from our outreach volunteer program is there's never anybody here when I need it after hours.
Right. At this time, we do have some flexible hours. I mean, they are working a little bit flexible. We've not done weekends yet, and we haven't done late hours. There are some labor negotiations that we need to work on, but we're not getting those requests. So right now, our data has not shown a need for that. So we're going to be doing a little bit more work on that. But if there's other information or other agencies, I would encourage you to have them reach out to myself or to Ian Haney in our report, because again, our data is not showing that at this time.
Councillor McRoberts.
How would you know about that data? I personally get calls as a counselor from people saying, I'm trying to help this individual. What can we do? And I refer back to the hours or to Salvation Army or. So how would you know? There's no hotline to call. So it is there. And if it is an outreach, issues happen 24 hours a day, not just during work hours.
Correct. You might recall that we have a partnership with the Inn of the Good Shepherd, with the Lodge. So we encourage anyone who comes across someone experiencing homelessness or experiencing homelessness themselves to reach out to the Lodge. And right now that seems to be working, that they are able to reach out to the Lodge. They are able to be placed. Now, we're not necessarily going out on the weekends to individuals, but again, we've not received calls through the Lodge for that. And of course, if anyone is in distress, I always encourage, you need to call 911. You need to call the police, so that's continuing on. And we continue to work very closely with the impact team. So we're still early days, and we're going to be continuing to monitor the hours, because I do hear your concerns.
Good. One more. Thank you.
You did say you're in negotiations with the union for those, so that is actually being requested and worked on to have maybe some hours adjusted outside of that. That is active for those two positions.
I really don't want to speak to labor relationships, but we're always sort of looking at what are our hours. And, as you know, our hours right now are Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. We have several positions within our bargaining unit that have some flexibility based on their positions. These two have some flexibility. So we're always looking at that.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the General Manager of Social Services. Yesterday, I sent you a picture of a group of individuals living rough at the front of the Sarnia Library. And you indicated to me that you were going to send some folks over to try to help those that you could. But you also indicated that there were a number of those individuals that you simply couldn't help for one reason or another. I assume that, what would be some reasons why you couldn't help some of those individuals?
To Councillor Dennis, there are some individuals that we're not able to assist because they have been banned from the shelter system. Typically, they're banned from the shelter system for inappropriate behavior or threatening behavior. So it's also our responsibility to make sure that staff are safe and the staff at the end of the Good Shepherd are safe. So they sometimes have to ban individuals. Sometimes individuals are also banned for severe drug use and not wanting to follow any of sort of the rules within the lodge, which also puts people at danger. So that's the main reason that we would ban individuals and not be able to assist. And when I say we're not able to assist, we still try to find them somewhere to go. We still, try to see if there's any other place they can go. We still try to make sure they have, shoes and food and those types of things. So we continue to engage with them, and we continue to go back day after day. Some of the individuals that you saw, we've been meeting with them regularly for months and trying to build that trust relationship so that perhaps one day their behaviors will change or something will be different and we may be able to assist them more. So we never stop trying to assist them.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more discussion or questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Moving to Part C, the SIP proposal. Mover and second, bring it to the floor, please, and I'll read out the recommendation. Councillor Cook, Councillor McRoberts. Recommendation is the council approve the initiative as follows. If the County of Lambton Service and Innovation Planning proposal is accepted, that the county be authorized to enter into a contract for the delivery of employment services within Lambton County with the City of Windsor as the service system manager for the period of January 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025, provided the county service and innovation planning proposal is accepted, and B, that provided the condition in paragraph A is met, that the county be authorized to hire 1 full-time temporary employment supervisor and up to 8 full-time temporary employment service workers for an initial period expiring no later than March 31st, 2025. On the floor, discussion please. Councillor McRoberts.
We currently have 3 different agencies that are looking after this work and have that grant money: the workplace, Goodwill, and the college. Why suddenly is the county stepping up to kind of get into this program when we already have 3 agencies that are handling this and have been handling it for some time? I'm just curious.
Valerie, please.
Through you, Councillor Ferguson, to Councillor McRoberts. So the County of Lambton actually has been delivering employment services for many, many years as part of our Ontario Works program. We deliver both employment and income services. As part of the employment services transformation, the ministry wants to solidify all of those groups. So they're wanting to put together the Employment Ontario network with the MCCSS network, which includes some other providers from ODSP as well as Ontario Works. We have probably the largest employment program in the county presently, so we felt that it was important that we continue on that work. Dollars have been removed from our Ontario Work budget and moved over to the Employment Ontario budget. So we felt it was important that the county continue on that work that they've been doing. We have a very close relationship with the clients that we work with, and we feel that we can continue to provide excellent employment services within the county.
Follow up, please.
So if we do progress and grow and hire, eventually are we going to take funding or positions away from potentially from these other agencies that have been doing it? It's kind of a job we're gaining, we're hiring 8 people, well 9, and then they may lose. There's only so many people that need help.
Through you to Councillor McRoberts. Actually, within the Ontario Works budget, we lost significant dollars, which I'd reported on earlier in the year. With losing those dollars, we have a number of positions that we've not been able to fill because of that. So they've moved the dollars from MCSS to Employment Ontario. So really, if we were to receive these dollars, it would be exactly the same as what we lost, almost. And as I said, we've been doing that work now for quite a few years. So I can't speak to if it would take positions away from other individuals. Under the new program, the City of Windsor is the service system manager, and the City of Windsor will make those determinations based on which organizations are meeting their outcomes. So I think the funding will be, the funding formula is determined by the number of outcomes, the number of individuals who become employed and remain employed. So that would be up to them, but each agency would have the opportunity to provide those services and look to see those outcomes.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Any other business? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you. We'll move on. There is no in-camera today, am I correct? Thank you. So motion to adjourn, please. Councilor McRoberts, all in favor? Carried, thank you.